Tal Farlow. This is my Hot Licks instruction tape, videotape for guitarists, and with some ideas that I hope will be helpful. I am I'm completely self-taught, and I started out playing on an instrument that my father made, which was basically a mandolin. It was made on the mandolin. It was made into the tuning of a ukulele, and I started out playing the pop tunes of that time, which is like in the 30s. And on this ukulele, and I learned to play chord solos on it. And of course, I was quite small then, and my hands were not quite big enough for my dad's guitar. And but I did manage to learn to teach myself to play that ukulele, and I learned to play in several different keys. And then I later transferred to the guitar when my hands got a little bigger. As you see, they have a tendency to do that. And I was then faced with two more strings that I hadn't had previous experience with, so I used my thumb. Now, which I use to actually note both the fifth and the sixth strings, or both of them, or either of them. So you'll probably see me play chords that sound familiar but don't look familiar because of that, and several other parts of my playing, which is just from being self-taught and not having a teacher. But I was playing, as I say, the pop tunes that I was playing at that time are now what we call our standards, and are the material that the jazz players are using to improvise against. So at an early time, I got out of the practice of playing in what might have been sort of home keys for a ukulele or guitar, and I got used to playing in so-called flat keys, which would be the C, F, B flat, E flat, and A flat, and even D flat. And I think it's a good idea to offer to players who are sort of beginners to move as quickly as possible into those keys and familiarize yourself with the different positions that requires. And I don't use open strings very much in scales or anything, because that's it is not something that you can transfer up and down the fingerboard in order to follow the chord changes. Anyway, the players when I was young that I heard on the radio were probably maybe Carl Kress and Eddie Lang and Dick McDonough, and they all played, this is naturally before the amplified guitar, and they played all chord style solos, which was the fashion then. The guitar having sort of followed the banjo into the role of rhythm instrument in a dance orchestra. So they played like, called it like a, something like that, and it's sort of a rhythmic type, and actually I heard almost no single string at all until I heard, say, Charlie Christian, who came along with the first electric guitar that I had heard. And actually, it was the first one that most people heard, because he was in a very prominent band, that being Benny Goodman's band, and got a lot of airtime and exposure on radio and records. So the style that he played was sort of derived from the horn players of the time, which were like saxophone players and trumpet players and clarinet players like Benny Goodman, and was single note primarily. So that, in my opinion, that really sort of started the trend, which became sort of the way to play the electric guitar then. And of course, I was very much fascinated with that, with the single string guitar, and I even took and built my own electric guitar, not having any other way to have one. And and I learned Charlie Christian's solos off the records of the Benny Goodman Sextet, and I could play those along with local musicians. We had our version of the Benny Goodman Sextet, and his playing was sort of very much followed the chord changes, which were not too complicated for the time, some of them being the blues changes, 1, 4, and 5, as you know, and he would play phrases like something like that. And so I continued to try to develop along those lines my playing, and picking up his licks, as they're called. And then before too long, unfortunately, he passed away, and I didn't have a hero then. But by then I had learned that Charlie had been influenced very much by tenor sax players. And so one of them was Lester Young, who was a great tenor sax player with Count Basie's band. And so right away I started playing licks from Lester's records with Count Basie. And from then on I started listening to other instruments rather than guitar. I was very much fascinated by piano playing of Art Tatum, great jazz pianist who was really a virtuoso technically, and with very, for the time, revolutionary ideas about harmonies. And what fascinated me particularly about Tatum was, as I said, the tunes that I was hearing, the pop tunes of the day, were also, I could hear them in the fashion and with the chord changes that the composer wrote for them. And then I could also hear Tatum's version, which he was quite adventurous and took a lot of liberties and sort of made the chord changes to suit himself, and that really fascinated me very much, and I tried to learn what I could from Tatum. those were a couple of courses of blues sequence in the key of F, and I'd like to show you the chord positions that I used and what I developed as positions from which to play the single string solos based on the chords, one chord in that case being F and B flat 4 and 5, C. But I tend to stay in the mid part of the fingerboard as much as possible. So here's one F I can play. But I would avoid this too much because it gets too much into open strings, which I said I personally don't like to be involved with. So I'd use principally this position here for and extend on up that way with that position also. And for the C7th part would be and for B flat is right here. So I would play and this for the B flat. For D7th, G7th would be up here, as the same as the F, but a tone higher, two frets higher. I'd like to talk about now the sequence of the 2-5-1s, 6-2-5-1s, 3-6-2-5-1s, which is basically parts of the cycle of fourths, and it's sort of the law of gravity of harmony in our kind of music, and it's best illustrated by, say, the relationship of 5 to 1, which, say, when the key of G is would be the relationship of D7 to tonic chord G, and then taking the fifth of that would be the A7th chord. So you got, your ear tells you that's a very logical sequence. And so you can go back and take the fifth before that, and what you're doing is you're just explaining the sequence of fourth. And a lot of our music is, when analyzed, it seemed to start out, say, on one, or not necessarily, but it goes to one of these other intervals and works its way back towards the tonic by, oh, I see, that's 6-2-5-1. There was the blues again. What I was doing in there was playing tritones, which are intervals, which you can find them. They go diagonally across the fingerboard like this, and they could represent a dominant chord because it needs a resolution. It's also called a flat 5 interval. And here I'm using that like that with the tritone here and a 4th interval here. The 4ths go straight across the fingerboard like this here. We're just for this example, we're not talking about the strings 1 and 2. That we'll call those the strings that will be will carry the melody more or less, and the harmony part will be the other lower 4 strings. So there's these can work in actually diminished intervals, or 3 frets or a tone and a half. My concept is more visual, I think, than most, on account of my other profession is making signs and posters and things. So I'm used to relating to things in a visual way, and so this is the point I want to make here is like the 4th make a pattern like go straight across here. So these sounds sound like a major sound. It's resolved. It doesn't need any place to go. Whereas this needs a resolution to here. So this is a part of the chord that makes it a dominant. See, those are just 2-5-1. Those intervals of the chord that are the 3rd and the 7th of the chord, and what happens is as you descend, this becomes then the 7th and the 3rd of the next chord in line, which would either be the the chord immediately a half tone down or the 1/4 away. So in other words, now here you might say this represents F. You can say that half this whole two chords here represent the B flat, and that's just a half tone down from here. So you go, and now for B flat you go, then for B flat. I started on the F chord and went down to D in half tone, and G7. Going ahead with that idea as using this chord, which is a with, of course, the tritone interval on the bottom here, and keeping the melody note the same, are a couple of like useful chords which you can use just and to sort of fill out a single string phrase and make it like, you know, like a solo thing. So you can see that that you can get quite a lot of use out of this one chord formations. Use it here and also here. So this is from here to here is the tritone interval. So it's That was a little song called I Thought About You. I took a trip on the train and I thought about you. And that is a song which there are lots of examples of the fourth movement and the tritoned concept. And how those little chord fragments can sort of help fill out the melody and the improvised single lines, you know.
When you think about Tal Farlow, if you know anything about him at all, first thing comes to your mind is this incredibly wild sense of harmony that's associated with the name. And then you know the man in person, or have ever had the occasion to meet him, and see how humble and meek he is. It doesn't quite match up.
There's a sort of a myth that that I was unhappy with the nightclub scene and the phrase "the seamier side." I don't know about the seamy side. I don't know anything about the seamy side. You know, there's the nightclub business. It's not that much of a drag. I mean, well, consider this. I know a lot of people that are doing work that they dislike intensely, so I consider myself pretty lucky. The thing is that I'm not looking to be a star, you know. I just like to be a participant in making some good music.
It takes another kind of man to realize where put the priorities in the right places. You know. His spot has never been, it might have been vacated temporarily, but the chair is still there. And it's got his name on it.
I'd like to take that song, I Thought About You, and maybe present it in its, with its melody and the basic harmonic flow, and point out some of the features of it that makes it an attractive song for jazz musicians. It goes. That's basically it's E flat to C7 to F7, F minor 7, G7, G augmented, C minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7th, and A flat minor, back to E flat, A minor 7th, and D augmented, C, F, G, and then C, F, B flat. So it goes from E flat to C7. So lots of times the jazz player may play descending 2 5s there. That's B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A minor 7, to D 7, A flat minor 7 to D flat 7, G minor 7 to C 7. So it sets up a chromatic thing where if you play a phrase that fits the E flat, you can just work it down in half tones as it follows those chords down. And even if you did that and say the rhythm section or the other played it more in a straight way, straight fashion, more simply, more directly from the E flat to the C, it would not be. You'd be creating a sort of an interesting line, even if it did not coincide precisely with the chords they were playing. So such are the things that happened in improvisation, and play lots of 2/5s, as you can see, and maybe the chromatic. So things like that are actually it's just a stack of fourths and comes down chromatically, and then take the top note, move it as the chord goes down, move the top note up, and then repeat it. It's sort of a nondescript, it doesn't really have any strong identity harmonically, but it's sort of a nice fill. Remember that I spoke of my early musical days. I played a ukulele, 4-string mandolin tuned like a uke. And then when I started to switch to the guitar, I had these other two, I call them bass strings. And I think perhaps that method of arriving at the guitar probably gave me the idea of probably that the bass strings were separate from the others. In other words, it was not all just one chord, so to speak, but I had these chords I could play on ukulele. Now I can play. So the thumb is getting the 6th and the 5th string, or I could even do. There's other chords that might be interesting, or say the ones that guys were when the bebop came along with the sort of more, little more adventurous harmonies were being played. And we're playing chords with flat 5s and flat 9s, and they might sound like so this would be like a G minor 7 and a C 7 with flat 5 and flat 9. And what basically this is, that is just an F sharp chord, 7th, F sharp 7th chord with a C in the bass. So it was sort of easy to me to think of those chords as a rather simple 7th chord with just a different bass notes. So you might, let me go slowly through the blues sequence and try to use some of those chords. And that's a G7 with a flat 5 in it. bit of blues, like a piano like that.
His massive hands made him, eligible for things that we can only dream about as players. Years ago, my father used to tell me about men who had their hands split so that they could make wide chords on the guitar. They used to get the webs cut and operated on. Well, he already had that. Not the operation, it was a natural thing with him. And so therefore he would cover the neck so fluently, and so fluidly is the word I'm looking for. And but you love to hear him play. With him, it's not an envious thing. Of course, we all wish we were something we're not. But and certainly I would like to have those kinds of hands. But it's such a pleasure to hear him play. Until it never enters your mind to try to cut Tal Farlow. Forget it.
In the 50s, when I worked with Red Norvo along with Charles Mingus, and we had the Red Norvo trio, we did lots of getting together in the afternoon. We worked a lot, and so we were interested in. We had naturally just guitar, vibes, and bass, and the sounds that we could develop with that we felt sort of limited, and we tried to think what things we could do to expand the range of sounds that we could get with that group. And one of the things that we did, one of the things we did was Red could play chords on the vibe, four-note chords with the two mallets in each hand, and I would play the melody on top in harmonics, which would create quite an unusual effect. Another thing was one of the arrangements that we had, I did something that's probably a little more startling to see than to hear, although it sounds pretty good too. I was just holding a C against all those chords, and the chords basically went, as we were speaking before, in fourth, starting on a F sharp 13th, with what would be the flat 5 now in the melody, and F7. Now it's in D flat, major 7. bass line goes. I spoke before of playing Red Norvo and some of the sort of unusual devices we tried to use. One of them, as I said, was my playing in harmonics. And I might do something like this, which is I'm going to play now blues sequence in E flat. The way I do that is just to finger the phrase in this position here, and I know that my landmark for this, the whereabouts of the midpoint of this string at that noted at that fret is over that screw. So I visualize this whole position as I see those in my mind right there. And of course, when it's like this,
jazz musicians, I believe, play probably for their co-players on the bandstand. You know, they play for each other probably as much or sometimes more than to the people out front. Often there's more educated listening going on the bandstand than there is out front. It's sort of a musical conversation. The back and forth of that, I think, is what makes a good jazz performance.
But I'll play an octave C. There's the octave.
Yeah.
But instead of playing it with that, I'll play it with my little finger and just put the nail on the harmonic. And at the same time, I pick off of it with the little nail.
Taking on quite a task when you try to play one of those damn things.
Yeah. And I only started listening to jazz when I was 15.
Yeah.
You know, and like, well, naturally, I wanted to hear guitar players, so I listened to you, and I have to confess, most of the records I had were yours.
Oh, really?
That's right. Like some of the chords I first heard you play, I was about maybe 16 or 17. And I heard, you know, I didn't hear you play chords that often, but when you did, some of the chord changes you'd use, some of the voicings, they completely just threw me off because I didn't know what you were doing. I didn't understand it. You know, I heard some of your records, you were playing some chords, man, that, I just don't know. I just never heard anybody play those chords. Some of the chords you were playing on your solo stuff, you start out a tune by yourself or something, then bring the rhythm section in. And you'd have to, maybe the string tuned down, something like that.
I did.
And those are great chords, man, because they were like,
well, that fattens them up considerably.
It really does. It really
does. One of
does.
the strings down an octave,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just the voicings alone, it took me a few years to I finally got on to him, you know, after I got into piano. You know, I got into piano, and then all of a sudden I said, oh, yeah, that's what that was. You know, you, I don't know, you were using stuff
you know,
like...
You can't get your pick any farther away from the string than that, you know. Yeah, now see, you're picking up there, and you're picking like 2 frets away from where you got this one noted, but you're
Spreading down there.
6 frets away from the other one. So these will have maybe a decent sound, but that one sounds a little tinny.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about this guitar. It's a, this is the prototype, or the very first attempt by the Gibson company to make a Tal Farlow guitar, and it was done in 1962. It is, it's often taken to be an L5, but it isn't an L5. It's more like the ES350, which is a guitar that I played for years with Red Norvo and with Artie Shaw and others. But this one is their very first model that they made, and they sent to me for my approval. And I had previously made a sketch in which I had indicated I would like to have a scroll effect here in this area. And so I pointed that out in the letter after receiving it, and then they sent me another one, which was the kind of the Tal Farlow model that they finally produced until 1967, and I understand a total of 217 of them were made. And there's nothing unusual about the scale length, but even though I previously had a guitar which was an ES-250, which was not cutaway, and I had the scale shortened by having the luthier take and eliminate the first fret and then just move the whole thing down, including the bridge. So it was now this much, the scale length was this much shorter. And so if you take away one here, you get two here. Then, so my thinking was that I would, instead of it joining at the 14th fret, it would then join at the 16th fret, and being, as I said, non-cutaway, I would still be able to play those high notes. So, but I did not, I returned, when I played the 350, it was a standard, I think it's 25.5-inch scale length, which is what the Tal Farlows are. And the Tal Farlow is now, as of about a year ago, back in production, and with the same design as in the old 1962 to 67 model. So here's the new Tal Farlow model. It's been out about a year now. This is 1994, and this is almost identical in design to the old 62 to 67 Tal Farlow. And actually the playing features are the same as on the prototype, which I just showed you. Well, you're probably wondering just what this is. This is a little ES, I think it's ES 125-3/4, and it has a short scale, which is very similar to the 250 that I was playing at the time of the first color television broadcast. And it was a show of the star was Mel Torme, and it was a CBS production, and it was the very first television broadcast, and the process involved having a color wheel in front of a black and white set, which spun around and gave you, in fact, a pretty remarkable color picture. But what happened was that the producer came to the bass player and me and said, we want you guys to paint your instruments. We'd like the bass player to paint his bass blue, and we want the guitar to be red. So we sort of told him that we couldn't be doing that with our expensive instruments. And he said, well, we'll get you some colored instruments that you can play. So I said, we said, all right, but be sure we can play them, you know. And so then it occurred to me that I had been sort of in the Gibson family for a while, and they, this was before they made the Tal Farlow guitar, but still I was playing Gibson, and they were featuring me in a lot of ads and everything. And so it occurred to me that I shouldn't be showing up on a television show of any kind playing another kind of guitar. So I mentioned this to the producer, and he in turn called the Gibson company in Chicago, and pretty soon they said, brought me to the telephone and said, Tal, just what the hell is going on over there? So I told them, and they said, well, okay, we'll send you a red guitar. So this is it. And at one time it was comfortable for me to play, but it's a little too small for my big hands. People at Gibson explained to me how that they put the red finish on this guitar, and they took that producer serious when he said he wanted a red guitar, insofar as to make even the fingerboard and the pickguard red. And in fact, it is red plastic, and the paint that they used, first they painted the guitar white. I suppose that red would not cover the dark natural color of this. However, they painted white, and then they took this plastic, they told me, and they ground it up into a powder and then put it in a solvent and made a liquid out of it and sprayed that over the white. So it had sort of a transparent, a translucent quality. You can almost see the white through it. There's little damage from some accident here, I think. But after all, that was in 1951 when this was made. So that's my little baby. And speaking of paint, red paint and other paint, that's which is a subject that I have some familiarity with, because it's been a good part of my life making signs and posters and advertising art, and actually that was really the only profession for which I did have any kind of formal training, which was a kind of apprenticeship with a sign shop in Greensboro, North Carolina. And it was while I was doing those signs that I used to, actually I've arranged to have my working hours switched around so that I could work at night and I could listen to the many musical things that were coming over the radio at that time, and that's where I heard my idol Charlie Christian, and of course Benny Goodman's group, and all the bands of that time, and learned, without even trying, learned all those songs. And of course Art Tatum and Ben Webster and Lester Young and all the great players I was listening to. I really didn't know who they were at the time, but anyway, so occasionally someone asks me about what kind of parallel might be made with between making signs or posters and playing jazz on the guitar, and there might be some, perhaps. Like you might say you have a surface that you want to put a message on, and you have a background, and you can make a parallel with that, with maybe that you have time and you have a chord sequence that could maybe serve as your background, and you put on the design that you make up in your own mind, and you do what you think looks good, and you play what you think sounds good. Anyway, we appreciate your attention, and I wish you all the best. Lots of happy playing time. I find that particularly when I don't feel as happy maybe or stressful or something, that the best thing I can do to help myself is to pick up my old guitar and play it. So thanking you ever so much for your attention.
Master guitarist, a very lovable man, and a man who loves his instrument. I want you to meet one of the finest guitarists, a master musician, Tal